before we jump into Web3 and DeFi, let's know about you, your growing up years in France and your education. How would you define it shaped you?
No, for sure, it was a big reason of what got me here, and especially this reflection you were just touching upon. Pretty quickly as I started to work, I had this that was just active on Binance, but that's what got me on the path. And after that, in a few weeks, months of exploring, I centered my interest more around Ethereum and DeFi.
And just to capture timeline, which year were you studying business, trying to find your feet in the real world?
We are 2017, around something like that, I think. Maybe 2018 is when I started, writing about crypto, DeFi, being more active in there. A bit maybe in 2017, but those are like baby articles,
So what was your first Bitcoin and Ethereum story?
It's not really like I had an aha moment. I guess it's more, I saw a potential, and then I have aha moments every week on Ethereum, I want to say, because it allows, so many cool things. There is always something new you haven't tried out. So I don't know, like a recent aha moment, to give you something concrete.
If I'm getting paid $5,000 for 4 months work, I'm getting payment stream every second, every minute on blockchain via stablecoins or whatever crypto it is. And
Exactly, yeah.
I can claim it every minute, every hour, every day, or I can claim it lump sum at the end of 4 months. Is that?
Yes, that's it. And the part of the vision, this is kind of step one, to get some stream on chain. You can bring the programmability. I will get it in.
I could not find back in the day anything that could explain to me convex and curve the way your articles did. Welcome to another episode of Digital Dunia podcast. Today we have got Token Breeze, who is a well-known personality in DeFi. I have had a unique pleasure of knowing him and following his work for nearly 5 years. And I can tell one thing for sure is I'm really grateful for his write-ups. He writes really long and in detail, which works for me. And in some ways, Digital Dunia is kind of inspiration from you, indirectly, directly, however you want to say. I see we both following a similar track. It's a relay race. I took the baton from you, and I'm trying to do my part to take it forward. That's how I see it. So welcome to the show, Token Breeze.
It's really nice of you. Glad to be here.
So we do not have any format. We don't have any structure. We cover pretty much a human story inside Web3. And I know that you are a very important part in this journey. And when we look back in 10, 15, 20 years from now, our contribution, and more so yours, would be quite pivotal. And I'm really sure about that based on what you have done. So before we jump into Web3 and DeFi, let's know about you. So where were you born, Breeze, and where did you grow up?
So I was born in France. Grew up in the suburbs of Paris. Studied in Paris and then traveled a bit as a student. Nothing too special about it, really. I guess you were with your intro. You were making me think of. I'm seeing this a tweet along those lines pop up once in a while, but it usually doesn't perform so well. And it's someone essentially saying, like the latest one I saw was, it's always the same sentiment, but expressed a bit differently. And the latest one was like, hey, in the middle of this war that is, so confusing, politicians doing all kind of stuff, having corruption and not being trialed and seizing power and wars and COVID and all the abuses that came with, and the central bank management and the CBDC and digital IDs. Like there's always, and in the middle of all of that, we managed to talk about crypto and just talk about what pumped 50% the last day. Like we don't talk about the base political motivation of it. And I think, it remains a critical dimension, the most important dimension. And my story is also reflexive of that. I guess if I had to sum it up, I would say, I used it as a personal level to refuse a form of society and extract myself from it. And then I want to help others do the same, use DeFi, crypto, as a political tool. I think this is really like the core of it and we keep forgetting about it.
It's very fundamental and foundational thing what you mentioned, Breeze. I completely agree with you, right? I was reading a book by Steven Pinker, and he mentions something that actually shocked me, right? And then in introspection, I realized that, okay, maybe it's not completely doom and gloom. So in human history, as of now, in 2025, we have been in the best possible state in human history that we are living in currently. There were more people killed in different kinds of war, famine, malaria, and whatnot, right? And even with all these wars that we hear around, right? All the mess that we see around us, we are still 10x better off than 2 or 3 generations before, right?
Yes, but the quantitative, the technical, I think is also part of the problem of what led us there, this progress imperative and this saying to people, oh, but you're living better. Look at your magic number on your magic internet bank account is no higher than the average magic number of the guy in the same position of you 30 years ago. But, at some point, people bring back to things they understand. No, my dad bought a house just working his regular job, and I struggle to buy a house. That's my reality. Not me, but person speaking. People actually see it. And I think to get almost philosophical, crypto, blockchains in general are here to help us bring back almost a concept of soul, in progress. Because right now it's been very soulless, very like a machine. And it has this capacity for the involvement of the individual, the coordination of it, that if harnessed properly, not to, pump and dump meme on on Solana or whatever, I think could land into something that, enables us to have a society that have the form of technology that we have now, but essentially is able to mitigate the adverse effects of those technology, we can go on and on, but like the wage slaving of the delivery drivers and whatsoever, and so on. So there is obvious, I think we are at a point now, and this is what makes it so interesting, is you really have to be hardcore blindfolding yourself to be like, essentially this model is great, we can do better, this is amazing, we live in the best possible world. Like, you could tell yourself that in, I don't know, maybe the 60s and 70s, and even then you needed some substance to induce that feeling in you. But, whatever the substance you take in 2025, unless you're lunatic, you cannot conclude that.
That was the premise. And I certainly don't believe it's the complete story, right? So that's one side of the coin. The second side of coin is where I'm in complete agreement with what you said, right? For the first time in human history, we have got tools for coordination, and we have got tools for property rights like never before. Right? So we can take those tools with blockchain and crypto and move to a place where coordination and property rights become much more equitable across the world for everyone. Right? So by no means I'm saying that I'm not aspiring for that future. I want to be there, but I wanted to be more balanced in my approach, saying that, okay, the journey, if I was born 50 years ago, I'm very fortunate to be where I am as of today, but this is not perfect. And I want to make sure that by the time we go away from this planet, we live something much even better for people, those who come through, right? And that's where blockchain, crypto, and the coordination game and the property rights, I think, will be much more different for the coming generation because of the technology.
For sure. And I mean, you can already seeing that a bit, like the younger, you're old when you start talking about the younger generation. But I can see it, the younger generation has like a bit of a different approach to property, I guess like the concept of remixing, reusing each other's work it's become like spread out more and is more common. People are less precious about the digital property in a way. Yeah.
So we started off with a deep dive straight away in philosophy. I'm going to bring us back on surface a little bit. Okay. So I personally think, Breeze, that what happens is the geography subconsciously plays a huge role in our life, right? We may not be consciously aware about how it has shaped us, but it plays a significant role. So I want to know your growing up years in France and your education and the time you spent as you were growing as an adult in Paris, right? How would you define it shaped you, right? There's no right or wrong. What do you feel it's contributed to you?
No, for sure, it was a big reason of what got me here, and especially this reflection you were just touching upon. Pretty quickly as I started to work, I had this kind of these thoughts that hit you, like, hey, I'm spending 10 hours a day in that job. That's pretty much as much as in my bed, essentially. So that thing is like, gonna have a big impact on me. Whatever I do about it, it's just you cannot spend, I don't know, a third of your awake time on something and just it being marginal in terms of impact on your life. But yeah, then I was, so I studied literature and then I got myself a bit lost in a business school, worried about finding a job, kind of cliche student, and then I found my feet as essentially a content digital marketer for startups, for technical products online. But yeah, it was a bit grunt work, writing article, handling social accounts, web strategies, things like that. So yeah, I searched for a way out of it in a way, and it came to me pretty randomly through a colleague that was just active on Binance. But yeah, that's what got me on the path. And after that, in a few weeks, months of exploring, I centered my interest more around Ethereum and DeFi.
So just to capture timeline, which year were you studying business, trying to find your feet in the real world?
We are 2017, around something like that, I think. Maybe 2018 is when I started, writing about crypto, DeFi, being more active in there. A bit maybe in 2017, but those are like baby articles,
And so this takes us directly into Web3 and crypto, right? So what was your aha moment? Because I believe that everyone has got their unique Bitcoin or Ethereum story. And sometimes someone, if they have been in long enough, they've got both of them. They've got their special Ethereum and Bitcoin story. So what was your first Bitcoin and Ethereum story?
Yeah, it's not really like I had an aha moment. I guess it's more, I saw a potential, and then I have aha moments every week on Ethereum, I want to say, because it allows, so many cool things. There is always something new you haven't tried out. So I don't know, like a recent aha moment, to give you something concrete, is like we keep talking about streaming money because it's been a concept around for ages. But I actually, I did maybe like, I'm going to stream a $50 donation over the next 6 months to this project to try it out, to see how it works. But I actually never did it, I want to say, with size. Well, just a few weeks ago, I needed to pay some people to work on a project I'm working on. And those are proper DeFi OGs. So so they were cool with it. So I set up a payment stream. And it's actually pretty amazing to see, like they have their whole budget, they know it's funded, but they also like see it coming in real time. If they are bad little duck, I can terminate the stream. I hope I won't have to do that. But, there is this whole transparency. And even I spent the next few hours just watching the stream and seeing the money flow, because it was like the very idea of money streaming was something a bit still foreign and alien enough to me that I was a bit fascinated.
That sounds fascinating, but I don't know what it actually means. Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, so that means essentially those guys, instead of me having to, every month they would send me a bill with like, I don't know, the salary, and I would send them some stable coin on chain corresponding to their salary. I set up a payment stream. So in the case, it's like a 4 months mission. And so the payment strip is funded with a whole budget for the 4 months and streaming to them at a rate that corresponds to their amount. So, they needed to have 5,000 amounts. So it's streaming at this space. And so that means on their end, the address that they indicated that they gave me can essentially go to this page on the Superfluid website at any time and check how much they have received from the stream and claim as they want. So it's also really cool for the recipient, potentially tax-wise, because it gives them a bit more control. It just accumulates there, and you claim when you need it. So you can claim every week if that's easier for you, or you can even let the full months go through and claim everything at the end if you want just one event, a reception event for your tax, your accounting.
So do you think it's I'm sorry, completely up to you if you can say which project is that, because that is so cool. So if I'm getting paid $5,000 for 4 months work, I'm getting payment stream every second, every minute on blockchain via stablecoins or whatever crypto it is. And
Exactly, yeah.
I can claim it every minute, every hour, every day, or I can claim it lump sum at the end of 4 months. Is that?
Yes, that's it. And the part of the vision is this is kind of step one, to get some stream on chain. But then you can bring the programmability. I will get it so in, and picture that now you are like a crypto freelancer properly working and getting like 3-4 concomitant payment stream. Then you can use some additional logic that don't exist yet to my knowledge, but could perfectly exist. Well, essentially, you would redirect all your stream to that address. And that contract will allow you to implement some logic on your streams. So, maybe, okay, 30% of what gets in, you drop them into Avi USDC. And that's like my saving account. But, automatically, you DCR ETH with 10%, you do this. You see, you can implement logic. So essentially, you have your whole kind of like DeFi strategy implemented for you on your income that you're getting on chain. And every time you click that claim button, it's a bit like magic's happening to optimize your allocation.
Are you comfortable sharing the project? Which project?
Of course. So the streaming solution is Superfluid. Superfluid, let me check. I think it's .org. Yes, Superfluid. And so those guys are like kind of the specialists at streaming money.
Wow, I'm definitely going to check that out, and we'll give them a shout out over here on this video.
Yes, and then you can check because it's like it's a bit like a framework. Essentially, any token can implement that, and so they have a kind of ecosystem of project that implements it. In the case I used USND, sorry, stablecoin on Arbitrum, Nearate, that has this integration, so you can stream USND to people. You can do it with USDC or what.
That is the beauty of observing your work for such a long time. I'm going to circle back to Curve and Convex because that's when I was introduced to your work. And I believe that I could not find back in the day anything that could explain to me Convex and Curve the way your articles did, right? And I want to know, how did you figure that out for yourself first? Because in order to teach or able to express yourself, I feel it's extremely important that you understand it really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the key to that was really the community side of things. I created the DeFi friends very early on when I got into DeFi, and I always had this approach of learning a bit collaboratively. We had a lot of meetups back then every month. So it was kind of a bit of DeFi cafe. We meet, we discuss the latest hottest thing. It's actually pretty funny, Sometimes I use it as archaeology, because you have like every big event of DeFi has his own like DeFi friends meetups. So, like when Comp launched liquidity mining on the Comp token, and that was one of the big time you could just park money somewhere and literally earn token, and the food farms, we covered it all. So I guess that was a big factor to learn, and this just trying out things. I've especially I've wasted a decent amount of gas doing some things that are like gas stupid on chain, putting $100 into a stablecoin vault where it was costing you, I don't know, $5 to deposit, but just to see how things worked, I think that was a big thing as well.
So if you were to just run down quickly what is Curve and how does Convex sit on top of it again for our audience, I'm going to time you. How fast can you do that?
Well, okay. So at the first layer, Curve is an exchange. It allows the pairing of tokens and has a model to incentivize the supply of liquidity by liquidity providers, so that it has enough liquidity, enabling swappers to have a good price. But then it gets a bit more complex because you have now CRV USD, so a lending system on top of Curve, where people can open positions on certain assets and borrow mint that CRV USD. So it's like a CDP system, but it has some interesting property regarding liquidation. Now, this system is also used in, not the system, but a CRV USD also has essentially a money market. So think more AVI style, where you're borrowing CRV USD against a more diverse set of collateral. And finally, just recently, they launched a yield basis.
Yes.
So this one is a bit more complex to apprehend, I guess. But I guess it's a new type of liquidity structure initially with some incentivization logic to compensate impermanent loss on top, and that uses kind of the whole ecosystem. So it's a curve pool. It uses some borrowing of CRV USD. It's this whole thing built on top of curve to try to capture a new market, and more importantly, I guess, to essentially allow LPing with a single asset and kind of the system absorbing the counterparty part.
And I think, for our audiences, right, we have got, this is a good snapshot, but we have done Curve Convex and Curve Wars episode in past. So if you need more reference, please check it out. Also, I'm going to throw over here link to Bryce articles from the days. So
but goodies.
Yes, you can check them out. What I wanted to say, Curve, especially Curve with the last 2 years, right? I feel that the complexity of project just takes it so higher, right? Even with CRV,
yes,
CRV USD and yield basis, right? That most people will struggle to understand unless until they don't have proper financial market structure or understanding. It's very difficult compared to, say, Aave or Compound or Uniswap, for that matter, Aero, Velo. It's much more easier to grasp and understand. Is it fair to say that?
I guess, it's definitely increasing in complexity. I mean, it was already pretty complex, even before CRV USD, Llama Land, and yield basis. If you're thinking just the convex and all the interaction, it's kind of like, the innovation moved a bit. It used to be that, every 6 months you had this new token and this new concept on top of Curve. And now it's a bit more internalized. It's more like, there is this new Curve feature where you can do things, and potentially protocol starts using them. So that's the interesting part. But the complexity is a bit everywhere, even Avi got more complex. I guess the chance they have is you don't feel or see the complexity so much on the user side, but on the protocol side, the parameterization of assets and things like that, it did got much more complex. There is much more parameters to input to onboard the collateral, and as kind of the governance professionalized, the process also became a bit more heavy, a bit more dense.
I think something similar is happening with MakerDAO as well, right? The complexity is a lot more than what it used to be 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, some would argue that Maker was pretty complex from the start. But definitely, it's I guess like a maturity life cycle thing for protocol. As they add features they develop, and I mean that kind of leads you to AVV4. They rewrote from scratch. So I guess even them at some point were like, enough. Let's try something new. We've been adding on top of this for years. Let's go back to the drawing board.
I find as a tip, if you want to guide a newcomer, right, to cut their teeth into DeFi and start learning about DeFi, what would be top 3 steps you would recommend for them to follow?
Well, I guess there is some universal, but then it really depends on their interest. But, just trying a basic swaps, I guess is, still at the root of everything. Supplying somewhere, preferably safe, like Avi or I don't know. And potentially borrowing, because I think this is really where most of the opportunity still stands.
So that is one part to actual using the protocol to understand how it works. And there is the second aspect is understanding the functions of what is happening, but why is it happening and what value does it provide, right? So I think your write-ups on Curve and Convex, including Llamaland or even Union back in the day. I think Pounder, you also had a write-up on Union Pounder, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So that would be a good starting point. We'll also drop the links in the description for people to check it out. But I also feel that it's really important to understand the financial concepts, because I've come across people. We recorded with one of the founder last week. He does not come from DeFi. He comes from an engineering background. And he was like, I started doing some crazy shit with option and trading. And before I realized I was badly burned, and which is what happens to real people, right? So I would suggest find some kind of way to understand the basics. That's why I ask you that question.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is requires patience, and you just need to, especially if you're on board now, we saw DeFi kind of grow and get more complex as we were understanding it more. So I guess we got it easier in a way. But I think, no, it's really about kind of accepting that, this is a wild world. You won't understand all of it from the get-go, but it's really about more kind of putting the spotlight, like when you on one, protocol or areas that interest you, and really understanding the intricacies here. And from here, you can kind of jump laterally, because at the end, there is not that many type of contracts or whatsoever. There is a very limited amount of patterns that can replicate all around DeFi.
Bryce, I've got this 3-step I tell to my friends and family around, anyone who wants to. Every time someone comes and asks me, how do I start? So I say 3 steps. So my 3 steps to them are, number 1, first and foremost, do some lending and borrowing, which is very basic. So most people understand lending and borrowing, right? So you've got $100, you go and lend. Make sure you go and check after a week to see how much interest you have accumulated to make that claim. Likewise, borrow $50 against that $100. See how much interest has accrued, which is your liability, and you need to pay. Close that position in a month's time to get a good understanding about lending and borrowing. That's the basic, I would say. That's the first thing.
That's a great start, yeah.
And the second thing I say is, when you want to go into next level, which is DEXs, right? So there are also 2 steps in DEXs. So first is just make a swap, as you said before, right? So convert some USDC into ETH or ETH into USDC, or if they are using Solana, using Phantom or MetaMask or whatever it is, try and swap. That's the first step. And then after you feel comfortable with that, then go into the second layer, which is liquidity providing. But it's not as easy, because it's got much more nuance and understanding that is required to make sure that you're safe doing that. So that takes a little bit time doing and learning. So that's my normal suggestion that I would give.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm not sure even liquidity providing is, sometimes I wonder if it's we got so used to it that we see it as something very natural, but I wouldn't even direct so much newcomers to there. Because you have so much opportunities now, just a single asset supplying somewhere, and it's probably easier to start with that than going into the intricacies of understanding NLP.
Help me. What do you mean by that? What are the things?
I don't know, drop some USDC on Avi or some stable on Fluid. Yeah, using some ETH staking or restaking product, depending on the token, whatever solution they have to produce. You have options.
So you mean to say that lend and borrow is the first option, staking is the second option?
Yes, I would say staking is simpler than supplying liquidity.
Yes, probably. Absolutely. Because I come from financial background, right? And people I talk to, they do have some basics. So they want to generate yield. So lending and borrowing is one. Staking for them is a lot harder, right? I understand from your and my context that it's from an action point of view, it's much more simpler. But for them to understand yield on staking it takes me long time to explain to them what staking is and how it's generating yield. But a new, fresher or young people coming in, for them, they don't have the past baggages or connotation, so they are more easily picking up to staking. That's been my experience. Cool. So that's really interesting. Now, I'm going to use this opportunity to ask you 3 questions. First is about, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is it all started with Uniswap, then followed by Curve, right?
Yes.
Which was the next iteration. And then Sonic came in with Andre Cronje. Solidly came in with Andre, right? And he brought in Wave 3 DEX, Wave 3.3, right?
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on all the 3 model now? I know it, but for our audience, I want to hear your thought.
I see. Yeah, it's been a process essentially that spawned over almost like 3-4 years, if you take into account like a Velo release even. But essentially, those are different experimentation, different model to build a sustainable exchange, a decentralized exchange that can attract decent amount of liquidity and support proper size of swaps. Essentially, Uniswap is really the most bare bone. But it has merits, Uniswap V2 in terms of TVL, active TVL of LPs is still bigger than V3 and V4. So it has staying power. And the key thing here was really the simplicity of the experience for the LPs. With all the LPs being full range, it means all the LP tokens are composable. So I'll also open up some things, including the sushi attack that kind of started the whole idea of compensating liquidity provider with an emitted token instead of the fees or on top of the fees. Yeah, that's also in the mindset of which Curve came into play, because that's really core to it, and that's the first iteration we had of became a bit of a standard of DeFi, what we now call GOJs, those emission contract, where you stake an LP token and you get access to those token emission from the project. And then the game get a bit spiced up with Solidly by Cronje, but the experience was really short-lived because there was a structural problem in the model, let's say. So really where it became interesting again is when Velodrome launched about, if I don't get it wrong, about a year later.
Yeah, it was
on Optimism.
Yes, 2022 May, if I'm correct.
Yes, there must be something like that, because Velo must be soon 3 years maybe.
I think May or July of 2022, Velodrome launched, and August 23, Aerodrome was launched.
Yes, 1 year later roughly. And so they push that model even further, and essentially that was the first time LPs got an option where they got no exposure at all to their fees, but only a compensation in some emission token. I guess this is what made the model the most interesting, because it turned the activity of what the exchange is doing with this token from a bit of an pure optimization game to attract liquidity into an actual utility, because now essentially you can describe Velodrome and Aerodrome staking as the DEX is buying you your fees at a predictable emission rate on the token. And so you're trading a large uncertainty essentially, because the fees are completely dependent on volume. And for a smaller uncertainty, because now you have a set amount of Aero or Velo that is going to be emitted to the pool. And so essentially you're left with 2 variables in your calculation of what's your share, which is the price of Aero over the week and other liquidity providers. If you get diluted 50% in that pool, obviously this will have an impact. But still, it's somehow more predictable than pure fee exposure that can really go from 0 to 100 really quick, depending on the conditions.
And I know this is a very new experiment, and we've all been part of this experiment over the last 3-4 years. When I wear my TradFi head, I know that the longer it gets, the more time you put in, the abnormalities, right, actually evens out. So that is why V2, or with Aerodrome and Velodrome, the basic pool, right? I find them really interesting. I can't remember, it was last year or year before, there was a Harvard research paper, why in spite of making losses, V2 Uniswap has got the highest amount of TVL, right? And the logic based on my understanding, and then I want to hear your thoughts on it, is I feel that if you look at in isolation in 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years, the numbers could be haywire. But the longer you put in, right, take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the numbers will be completely different. And we will look back, laugh at how could we think so short term.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's always a bit hard to discern it when it's a real innovation or when it's just some more token games. We've been fed with so many that the default behavior is a very healthy amount of skepticism. But yeah, it also makes it hard to convince. I guess. Yeah, V2 staying power is not surprising. The CL is indeed more efficient, but has serious downsides. And I mean, the fact of being full range, especially for like meme coins and stuff that can get really, really volatile, is a desirable trait in most cases, more than CL, especially in the perspective of, if you think of a project that will supply a lot of liquidity on its coin early on and then experience a sizable growth. With CL, it is pretty likely that they will end up out of range, maybe with a decent bag of ETH, but with a large supply in a V2 pool early on, they pretty much covered their need for the whole life cycle of the project. The token can pump 1,000 times against ETH. There's going to be a ton of impermanent loss, but it's good because that means there is more ETH in the pool.
Yes.
So it's like we have a lot of concepts that we're so focused on our LP perspective, that sometimes we forget liquidity providers can be project. And in that case, this project, you take, I don't know, random coin goes 100x in its first month. And, they have, I don't know what, like 10% of the supply to LP with at the first. The best solution by a very wide margin would have been to put it in a VIMM versus a CL. Such a pump might not even be possible in a CL because people forget that, but it concentrates liquidity. That means it concentrates the selling zone tighter. That means you need more dollar buying pressure to pump the coin as much. So, there's tons of property to consider in the pools, and it's not just price impact or cost or efficiency.
And I like, it's whether it's Uniswap V2 or Aerodrome, Velodrome, basic pool, right? I've been monitoring Aerodrome, Velodrome basic pools for ETH USDC, and I never see them light. They are pretty robust, right? So my theory, and my understanding, I'm a firm believer that if you want if you want to play long-term game, that model works. If you look in short-term, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, it may not be a pretty picture, but if you have got a 5-year term or a 10-year term, chances are, I think that's the best set and forget model. I feel comfortable.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, it's they both have their purpose, So if you check on Aerodrome, as you were saying, there's still a decent, one of the most decent, probably V2 pool of ETH USDC is still up. It was like 20 million TVL in there, and at first value, it might look pretty inefficient. Like you look, this pool is doing 6 million volume today, and it's sitting next to a concentrated pool for the same pair at like 25x a TVL, 50 million TVL, but 1.2 billion volume. So like 500 times the volume, or I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know, 200 or something. But still a pretty decent multiplier on volume. But the true story might actually that, the two pools are more synergetic than when we think in the first glance. Having the large VIMM pool next to the CL, at face value, you'll be like, okay, you're wasting money because, you have more TVL in the CL, you process more volume. But no, because what happens if ETH pump 10, 15, 20% today, then this VIMM pool is gonna process a lot of volume on that day. So they kind of work together. And you see it also in the incentivization. It takes so much more effort to attract people to a CL pool, where a VIMM, the exposure is more predictable. You know you're going to stay 50-50. So then it's just a question of what happens on the price, but at least you have less concern on the IL. It's easier to model. So at the end of the day, you see it for whatever they're worth, because the CL, APR are always, they're given you for an activity over 3 ticks. But like right now, Aerodrome, the basic is at 7% yield, and the CL is at 324.
Yes.
And so, those are like East USDC pools. So you can assume they're pretty close to their maximal dilution, if you follow me. Like, if they were over yielding, they would have been seized by someone already. Or, one is actually growing. I just saw that apparently they're launching a new Rapis USDC pool where you can have 35,000% APR right now because it only has 1 million of TVL. But yeah, they're experimenting with a lower fee concentrated. Oh yeah, whoa, that's weird.
Are you checking on Aerodrome?
Oh, that's weird as fuck. Yeah, okay. So right now they had like a CL with 100 with and 004 fees, and they're going for something with like half this fee and 100 times more concentrated.
What's the APR? What's the emission?
APR is huge. It's like 36,000% over 1 million. Yes, but you heard me. It's East USDC pool with a width of 1. So 1 is what you use for stable coins, like properly pegged stable coin. So this is sportsy, I guess, the experiment.
So, Brice, going forward, right?
We get lost, sorry.
I want to take this conversation, Wave3 exchange, a little bit forward, because I know there was Ramsey that came after that on Arbitrum, and then Shadow again on Sonic with Andre's chain. And now
Flying Tulip soon.
Flying Tulip, right? So I don't know much about Flying Tulip. I don't think most people know. We'll get more clarity once it's launched. But I'm going to use EtherX, which is on Linea, Shadow, and Ramsey on Arbitrum. How do you see them fitting? Like, do you find any similarities or difference between this newer Wave3 versions?
They kind of all, variants over the same model. They're using a different code base. So they have a bit of subtleties between the different venues. So which one you said? SLX is a Ramses code base. Essentially, it replaced the whatever they call it, Nile or whatever they had on Linea.
Yes, Nile. They had Nile on Linea. Now it's EtherX.
And it's actually doing pretty well. I was surprised because Nile was a bit, plateauing. But it seems like EtherX, they got some proper support for Linea. They got the Linea airdrop as well. They've been processing decent amount of volume.
I did some numbers for myself over the weekend, and I don't know, like, this is not financial advice. Just do your research before you make any investment decision. Just a disclaimer I needed to put in. But I was doing some numbers on weekend, just trying to see, like, Ramsey, Aero, Velo, EtherX, and Shadow, right? Which performs better from a yield point of view, right? And I was shocked to see EtherX comfortably.
EtherX.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroying. I was doing just the same math between a Ramses and a EtherX position that are like similar size.
Yes.
And the Ramses position is bringing $60 a week of yield.
Yeah.
The EtherX position is bringing in 2,400.
Yes.
And we're talking same dollar face value of VE,
Yeah.
So it really shows you like how much more dynamism there is there on EtherX. And I guess a good, it's common sense, but I still not seeing a lot of people use that is just to test the DEX logic. You don't even have to buy into their bullshit. When I say of like trying to understand their model. You just watch the DEX and especially his pools on his tokens for the first month. If the model is sturdy, then there will be interest for the token, and then the DEX will be able to build decent liquidity for its token to capture interest. And so his pools, the Rex pool on Linea or the Aero pools on Aero should be at least decently provided, and ideally processing a decent amount of volume and redistributing a decent amount of fees as well. So on on Ramses, for instance, it's notorious. It's really hard to swap RAM token because liquidity is pretty poor. So when it starts like this, why do I want to LP to get RAM token if I know it's going to be a pain to do whatever with those RAM? SRX is much better there. Yeah, it has like almost $10 million of liquidity on volatile pool on its token.
I think that's the nerd and geek inside you and me, that we look at this kind of things. Now, I'm going to, as we go towards the final segment, just one last thing. Brice, how was your experience on Digital Dunia? If you can give us quick feedback.
I don't know. I mean, really cool, welcoming. Like that we have space a bit to talk. It's not too. I think it's good for this kind of show to not have a template. Maybe just a few questions you find yourself getting back to, but giving each guest a bit the space to go where they want to go, and I feel like we did that quite a bit today.
Thank you once again for coming on our podcast. I really appreciate your time.
No, of course. Thank you for having me, and yeah, that was fun.
Excellent. Thank you, friends. This was an amazing episode with Token Brice. You'll have his details in the description. Please go and follow him. He's very active on Twitter, and we've got a Telegram community that's up and coming. I would really recommend to join that one as well. And looking forward to talk to you guys soon.